Today we are 1 year and 15,000 miles into this Hummer EV, okay? We're gonna talk to you today about a lot of the pros and the cons and the inconveniences and the conveniences of this vehicle and whether the lease or the purchase was the right thing. So for us, I knew EVs kind of had their time and I really didn't want the liability of an EV with the battery and all those things. So I chose to lease. I am 100% glad that I leased this vehicle and I did not purchase this vehicle, okay? So basically I finished my lease, I can hand the keys and turn it in. So I'm good with that. So it's kind of like a rental car. Now we do have 37s on it, so it does affect it a little bit, but we're gonna talk about some of the charging. Now, this is probably one of the biggest conveniences right here, okay? I've got a level 2 charger. This one is hardwired, so it's right at 56, 57 amps, I think. It's got a 60 amp breaker. I think it actually pulls like 55, 54. It's right under that, right? And we charge at about 20 miles an hour, okay? So that means over a 10-hour period, I can charge it 200 miles, okay? So every night, it's pretty much gonna get full charged if we're not running it to 0, okay? It's simple enough. You grab it, you unplug it, put that in. Now when my wife pulls in every day, she plugs it in. We get it. We usually charge it to 80%. Today it's charged to 100 because we are going on a trip in the car. But see, you can see you get in here. And basically, get off the steering wheel here. The one thing that I don't like about the Hummer EV is if you look, it says 307 miles, okay? It always says 307 with a full charge. It does not adapt, okay? So they've programmed that into the vehicle. Now, here's where the real catch is with these EVs. And you know, if you're driving an EV car, that's gonna be more accurate. You know, if you're driving a 10,000 pound Hummer that's shaped like a brick down the highway at 80 miles an hour, is that gonna be right? No, you know, like a gas vehicle, if you go pull a trailer, you're gonna get a new number. It's gonna update for you. It's gonna say, sorry, I'm backing out. So it's gonna say basically, you know, if you drove it hard or you were pulling a trailer, it's gonna drop it down to 200, right? That's the thing I don't like about these, and that's what's gonna give people range anxiety in these cars, because it shows that I have 307 miles. Y'all, that's, and I'll give you an accurate, okay? Now we do have 37s. It does affect it a little bit, but it's not that much, y'all. So with 307 miles on here, I can go drive under 55 miles an hour. I probably do have that range, okay? Now I'm gonna get on the highway and drive 78 miles an hour. I've actually got about 150 to 160 mile range. It's almost half of that, okay? So if I'm planning a trip and I'm gonna get on the highway and I'm gonna go run 75, 80 miles an hour on the highway, it's gonna eat that battery up. And there you go. And if it's really hot outside and the AC's running and all that, okay? Some of the pros and the cons for the charging is, everybody says, oh, well, you can charge at Tesla stations. And I do have the Tesla app and we charge at Tesla stations. Generally, like the 200 kW stations will charge at about 100 to 120 kW, right? That's usually a 40-minute charge time. Okay, that's like at 120 to 150 miles an hour, I think, charging, okay? And you're gonna pay what you would pay to fill up an SUV if you're paying outside of your home, right? The difference between 9 cents that I pay at home versus going to one of these charging stations and paying 50 cents. I mean, you're looking at an $80, $90 bill to fill up your car, which is about the same as an SUV, but the difference is where it says 307 miles, you're not gonna get that, okay? Now, for the everyday short trip driving, this thing is way cheaper than a IC, internal combustion, right? You know, she's running every day, probably running 60 miles a day, coming home, throwing it on the charger. You know, we're talking $3 or $4 to top it off every day at 9 cents a kilowatt. And she gets back in it, it's fully charged, goes again the next day. Doesn't have to stop at the gas stations. And I will say for the everyday driving, I mean, there's no oil changes, there's none of that stuff. And so everyday driving, this car is great. The other thing that is really awesome about this car is, you know, in an internal combustion engine, you have a variable speed on your AC compressor. So, you know, if you're running down the highway and the compressor's up and your engine's up at RPM, it's gonna cool better, okay? And in these EVs, y'all, the AC system is twice as good as any IC air conditioner, okay? Y'all, this thing's already cooled down. It literally, and the cool part is you can see you've got a little over 200 kilowatt hour battery. Now we're running 2,000 watts just to sit here with the AC running and stuff running. So it is nice to be able to leave the air conditioner on. You know, sometimes even if we've got groceries in the car and need to go to work and do a few things, you can leave the car running and just lock it, and it'll sit and run a long time at 2 kW on a 200 kW battery, right? I mean, you can leave this thing running for probably 3 or 4 hours and it might use 1% of the battery with the AC on. So that's nice. The other thing that's nice is you can turn it on in the garage and turn the air conditioner on. You know, you don't have to worry about fumes, you don't have to worry about all those things. So some pros, some cons. Now, the biggest con for us in this vehicle, the thing we hate the most, is going out of town. Now, I'll put the disclaimer in that we live in South Texas, okay? Some areas have chargers. If you go south, it's hard to find chargers. We actually can't drive this car, you know, around down towards the Corpus area or towards McAllen, some of those areas. There is no chargers, and especially if you're running highway speeds and you only have like 140, 150 mile range, okay? And a lot of times, the Tesla chargers are the most dependable on the market. So if we have a Tesla charger in the app, we know it's gonna work, we know it's available, we know when we get there it will work. A lot of the other chargers, Blink and those other ones, you're gonna get to them, half of them gonna be under construction, they're gonna be broke down. And to be honest with you, probably the most dependable high-speed chargers I have found, if we're not using Tesla, is at the Ford dealerships. You know, they have the Ford Lightnings, and a lot of those Ford dealerships actually put in 150 to 200 kW charger. Now, if you remember me saying earlier that at 150 to 200 kW charger, you're really gonna get probably 120, 130, and you know, you're gonna be charging at probably 120 miles an hour, right? So it's gonna take an hour to get 120 miles of range, okay? Now, like when we go to Buc-ee's up here, they have a Tesla ones in the back. I can get 120, 150 mile an hour range, pretty much 150 mile an hour. But there's some Mercedes ones up front. I can go straight up to the Mercedes ones in the front and plug into those. And since these charge at high voltage, these Hummers, you can charge it like 350, 400K. Y'all, that's almost 300 miles to 400 miles an hour, okay? So we start looking at, you know, we're 15, 20 minutes to top the car off. And that's where you want to be. So if you find those chargers that work, but you know, again, you're gonna end up 80, 90 bucks in it, and then I gotta go to Houston, and then I'm gonna have to stop there again to charge to get home, okay? So range anxiety is not real bad when you understand the difference of its highway versus its city driving. And those are two significant difference. I don't have a car, so I can't tell you how that compares. I can tell you how this big brick, how it compares, okay? Now, daily at home, like I said, my electric bill probably went up 50, 60 bucks a month. We're putting close to 1,500 miles. As you can see, we've had it almost a year, and we are at 15,159, okay? Some of the other pros is it's just, with this car, it's the rear wheel steering, okay, y'all? I can literally make a U-turn into a left lane from a left lane, like, because of the rear wheel steering. So on your first round, basically it's not rear wheel, but when you make that second round, you can feel the back end start moving over. Let me open the door. I'll put it in park with this just to kind of show you all. You can see that tire, right, just moved over. You can turn that feature on and off here, so if you want the rear wheel steering, but I'm telling y'all, this rear wheel steering to get in parking spots with this car, like things that I kind of know I'm gonna have to kind of swing out with my truck, you don't have to do it with this car. And as big and as wide as it is, it makes it really nice because you can literally just, my wife can turn in like she's driving a car when she's driving this big Hummer, and it literally, the back end just pivots around. So the rear wheel steering is really nice. The air conditioner is really nice. The daily driving and being able just to pull into that garage and plug it in is really nice. You know, I think this car is going to be really great for someone that just makes, you know, 40, 50 mile a day commutes, and they plug into their charger at home when they get home every day, and I think it'll definitely save you some money, okay? Would I buy this car again? This is probably our last EV that we will own, just because when my wife has to go out of town, she's like, I'm just gonna take your truck, okay? It's easier, y'all, it just is. And you know, I guess if you live in a city that has a lot of infrastructure and a lot of charging, I'm not blaming that on the EV, but if you live in a place that has a structure for that, where you got, you know, EV chargers everywhere that are high speed, it probably wouldn't be as big of an issue. But when you get into these more rural areas and you don't have that, then that creates some of the problems. Now, the EV even makes more sense for me because I have a solar system. Okay, so some of you might say, why are you up on the roof? You've got the Hummer down there, right? Why does it make sense for me to have an EV? I put this system in back in 2019, y'all. This is basically an 18 kW system, okay? I sell back to the grid every day, okay? They pay me for the power I send back, and it runs my pool pumps, runs my house, my AC, and 90% of the driving we're doing in that car is paid for by these solar panels. Okay, also as far as the looks, the safety, and the storage of these cars, y'all, it's, you know, it's a pretty good sized vehicle, and it being extra wide gives you more width than most SUVs. This vehicle is wide, so when you're driving it on the highway, it's not like you're driving a narrow vehicle. But y'all, overall, this thing has not left us broke down. You got the storage in the back, and you've got a big frunk up here that you can put a lot of stuff in up front, okay? Now, again, AC, one of the best things. It's just sitting here running, y'all. It's been sitting out here. Look at that. Let's get in here. 76 degrees. It's over 100 outside today. Things I like in this one, it does have the digital rearview mirror. You know, it's not the most luxurious car. It's kind of like a Jeep, I guess, in comparison. You know, the seats are made for weather because you can take the tops off and stuff like that. But overall, the hands-free driving is really nice. You know, I think GM calls that the gosh, I'm trying to think of their name for it. Super Cruise. Yeah, Super Cruise. That's what it is. But where this car really shines for as big as a vehicle is, and I can tell y'all, I've had trucks, large vehicles, you know, acceleration wise, super quiet. But we're gonna get out here on the highway, and y'all, I think these cars, the Hummers, are like 3.9 on a 0 to 60 for a 9,500 pound vehicle. So if you like the sportiness and having the power, I think up to 100, 110, I think a Hellcat's gonna have a hard time keeping up with you. And that's just being honest. And this thing's all-wheel drive, and it will turn all 4 of these 37s on pavement when you floor it, and you better hold on. It's just a crazy amount of power. So that's the other thing, and it does drive well for a big vehicle. You know, it handles okay, drives good. So let's get out here on the highway real quick, and I'm gonna kind of show y'all how the regenerative braking works, and then I kind of want to show y'all an acceleration on how it excels. My dead stop, I'm gonna do about 3/4 acceleration. It right there. It's an unreal amount of power, and it's crazy when you drive these electric vehicles. Now you can see when I push the brake pedal, it's putting that power back in the battery. But you know, you can do the math. So if you're driving and you can see, like right now at 62, I'm pulling about 48 kW. Let's just say we're running 65 at 50, right? That's 4 hours of driving on a 200 kW battery, okay? But if I'm bumping this thing up, and of course when you go to acceleration, you're gonna see it bump up significantly. Let's get it up to 75, right? We'll set the cruise. Got a few little hills here. But just doing simple math in your head. So let's see where we land. So we're at, roughly at this speed, I think you're gonna average about 70 kW. And so y'all, in 2 hours of drive time, that's going to be 140 kW. You're going to be at about 30% on your battery. So that's just doing quick math off the top of my head. But the thing I'll show you too is like when you slow down, let's slow down to about 55. Just from and you can feel the back end of this thing squat down. So let's get down 55. Now let's go back to 75. That's 80, that fast, y'all. 37's, 10,000 pound vehicle. I mean, it's just unreal, the acceleration. So the sportiness and all that's great. The one thing I will say too that's a negative is if you've ever had a Jeep before that's got a flat windshield that's not slanted, you're gonna buy some windshields. Yeah, we had a Jeep before and we've got this thing and I think we put 2 windshields in it since we bought it. Rocks don't deflect off something that's flat, right? So, and it depends on construction and what you're driving in areas too, but if something hits it, 80% of the time it's gonna break it or crack it. So I've got one patch up there in the right corner. I'd say like fill that one in, but the reason I didn't replace it is because it's not my direct site, and I'll get 2 or 3 more probably in the next 6 months. Okay, so that's just one of the downsides to having a flat windshield. But overall, like I said, this car is not for everybody. Like I said, I don't think that we will be going EV again. If this car had if this Hummer came out with the Duramax, I would be trading this lease in tomorrow. Everything about this car I absolutely love. The EV part's probably the only part that gives me a little bit of heartburn here and there, but yeah, give us the 6.6 Duramax in this thing and I'm sold all day long. But anyway, hope the video helped y'all. If you're thinking about one of these Hummer EVs, I wanted to put something out after a year of ownership and kind of tell you, the pros and the cons. It is interesting not having a gas bill for this whole vehicle, and just costing the small amount that it does, and then me having the solar, which really knocks most of that off also. But again, if the video helped you any, please hit that like, please hit that subscribe. I will catch you on the next video. If you got any questions or comments, drop them below. I'll try to answer them for you.